jumping in, I have a few other questions before we get to why I get to talk to you today. If someone has actually never seen anything that you've done, what is the first thing you want them watching and why?
Gee, that's an interesting question. Um, I think it would depend who the person is, how old they are, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Uh, I can tell you when, when I meet somebody who hasn't seen The West Wing but wants to start watching The West Wing, I'll ask them to start with the second season, because it took like the first season for me to figure out how to write the show. If they want to see a movie I've written, it becomes a little trickier. That's a good question. Like I said, I think my answer is it depends on who's asking.
Sure. You obviously are on a level where if you said, I want to make this movie, I would imagine a lot of people might express interest. So I asked this question of a lot of people, and I'm not sure what your answer is going to be. If you could get the financing to make literally anything you want to make, what would you make and why?
Huh. Listen, as we sit here, for the first time in a long time, I don't know what I'm writing next. I don't have an idea for whatever is going to be next. I don't have a passion project that's been in my pocket all these years that I've wanted made. So I'll have to let you know when I get an idea.
Whatever ended up happening to that Houdini project, the musical that you were going to do with Danny Elfman?
Uh, Danny Elfman turned into Stephen Schwartz. So I started working with Stephen Schwartz. I was so excited about that. And it was a complicated project. And basically, we just couldn't, Stephen and I couldn't find a place to connect on the page. I was writing something different from what he was writing, and we just couldn't make it work.
The same sort of thing, but Ocean of Storms that you maybe worked on with with Warren, which I don't know if you want to talk about.
Yeah, it's the movie Warren and I have been making for close to 30 years. I was invited to, I was a punk kid out here to adapt my play, A Few Good Men, into the movie A Few Good Men. And he had seen it and he was impressed with it. And I was invited to a dinner at his house. I mean, this would have been in 1991. And was terrified. It was Warren Beatty and the kind of people who hang out with Warren Beatty. And I just happened to mention something. I think it was the first time I was speaking up all night. I happened to mention something about the moon and space and NASA and my interest in it. And he took me aside and he said, "Did you say that on purpose? Did you say that because you know that I have this project?" And honestly, I didn't know what he was talking about. And what he had was an old script called Ocean of Storms, where there was one scene in it that he liked, and he felt that the rest didn't work, and he wanted to start over. I can't tell you how many sandwiches at a deli Warren and I have had about Ocean of Storms. And I'll always love it because it was the thing that started this 3-decade friendship with this giant.
So the script's done, or is it not done?
No, 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 it was never started.
I want to drill down on this so bad, but I got to move on. Obviously, I think we might have spoken for The Social Network many years ago. And the fact is, that's a masterpiece. It's a brilliant piece of writing everything about that movie is phenomenal, right? And in the last 11 years, Facebook has morphed into something completely different. We all know what I'm getting at. Have you and David actually talked about, in a serious way, continuing the story, 10 years later and looking at the ramifications of what has happened?
Well, it's something I've thought about a lot, and I've mentioned it to David. And I think I'll leave it there. I don't want to make any news
I
with regard to a social network follow-up, except to agree with you that there's more story.
oh, absolutely, and I would love it for to be you and David to tell it.
I'd love
Like,
nothing more.
yeah. So moving into why I actually get to talk to you, I really want to start with a sincere congratulations on the film.
Thank
I
you.
think one of the really the smart things, I think, not that I'm smart, but like the way that you took these real, true events and just happened to have them all happen over 1 week.
I love compressing time and space. I love that claustrophobic, almost play-like feeling. So there were these three things that happened, these three big events in their life. The accusation that Lucy was a communist, the fact that Lucy was pregnant at a time when a woman could not possibly be pregnant on television, and the third was Desi showing up on the cover of Confidential magazine, a gossip rag, with another woman, and the headline "Desi's Wild Night Out." And I thought, well, I'm not perverting history or defaming these people if I take those three events and make them happen during 1 week, compressed time, and have the whole thing take place during one production week of I Love Lucy, Monday table read to Friday audience taping. So that's what I did. Dramatists get to do that.
Yeah, I should have said three and not four. I like making myself look stupid.
No. It's okay. You do not you do not look stupid.
So I'm fascinated by the editing process because it's ultimately where it all comes together.
Mhm.
This is now your third film that you've directed. What have you learned as you've been progressing in the editing room that perhaps, could you sort of talk about, because it's a different beast than writing?
It is. And the first thing I'll talk about is Alan Baumgarten, who's directed all three films. I'm sorry, who's edited all three films that I've directed, and he is fantastic. I love the editing process, and even before I started directing, as the executive producer, as the showrunner on the television that I did, there would be a director's cut, and then there would be a Tommy Schleimy cut after that, and finally it would get to me. And by the time it got to me, it was in very good shape, so there wasn't a lot to do. But I still loved sitting with the editor and saying, "Can you let's shave 4 frames off that, and get to the line faster. Let's use the two shot here, that kind of thing." So I really do love the editing process.
With this film in particular, did you have a much longer first cut, or was it pretty much? I guess let me stop there.
No, not much longer. And uh, there's one line that is on the cutting room floor. I can't think of anything else that was cut from the film. So it got shorter with tightening. I think probably the first cut was 11 minutes longer than our final cut. But it was just taking air out of scenes.
You made this film, I believe, in 38 days, which is not a lot of time to make a film, to make any film, let alone this kind of a film.
Let alone during COVID.
All of that. So my question for you is, talk a little bit about, like, was there any point during the shoot that you're like, I don't know if we're going to be able to pull this off in the time frame we have?
There wasn't. There wasn't. I would say before the shoot, I was thinking 38 days. How can we possibly do this in 38 days? But another person who's been with me on all three films is Stuart Besser, our line producer, and he's the one responsible for the schedule. And not only didn't I ever feel pressured, time pressure during that time, I felt other kinds of pressure. Not only didn't I feel time pressure, but there were some days that almost felt luxurious. Like, wow, we can take our time here. We can rehearse longer. Maybe I can send the crew home an hour early. So that and I credit Stuart with that. Stuart and a great crew.
I was also going to say, I would imagine that all the actors that you brought in, like if these actors and everyone are working for you, I think everyone's bringing their A game. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yes, they are. I think these actors bring their A game no matter who they're working with, and that is a big part of it. When the actors come to work ready to work, and they're not learning the scene in the makeup trailer, then it makes the days a lot better. You're getting good stuff by the second take.
I also loved the flash forwards, if you will, and the fact that you have Ronny Cox in the movie is like A+ casting. So I
Yeah.
really do want to know how long did it take you when you're working with Ronny to bring up Total Recall or Robocop?
um, I can tell you that it took the crew a matter of seconds to bring
Right.
up Total Recall.
I mean, seriously though, I would spend my entire day being like Chris Farley. So you remember when you were in that movie and you,
Yeah, and I am that way with a lot of actors, um, including Ronnie.
but getting into actually the flash forwards, how did you craft that idea of putting the flash forwards in the movie?
I needed a way to tell the audience right off the bat uh, that I Love Lucy was simply a different animal from every television show we're familiar with today in terms of its popularity. Of 60 million people watching the show, of department stores changing the night that they were open late because of the show, of a measurable drop in the amount of water being used during the show because no one was going to the bathroom, no one was cooking anything in the kitchen. Uh, and I needed a way to convey that. And so I thought of this idea. And once you do that, you can't just do it once and leave it alone. It'll become an exposition machine. So I needed to thread them throughout the film and have them kind of join up with the story at the very end.
I also love, man, I could keep on praising you, but the thing
Feel
that
free.
about the thing about this is that I never thought of the line "Honey, I'm home" in the way that I now think about it after seeing this movie. So could you sort of talk about like, although I'm not 100% sure that line is like, because I heard this rumor, doesn't matter, that maybe it
You heard
wasn't
a
in the
rumor
show.
that he never said it?
Yes, like Javier was saying that, and I'm like, I don't know if that's true.
People mistake. No, no, no. He in the first season alone, Desi says, "Lucy, I'm home" 17 times.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
That's so I'm not
it's
crazy.
what
Yeah.
people confuse that with. Lucy, you got some splaining to do, which Desi never said on the show. I'm not sure how it became its era's version of a meme, but it did. I but Lucy, I'm home. Uh, I was driving in my car, which is also what I do during the climbing the walls agonizing period. I try to find a straight piece of road, a freeway where I'm not going to have to think about turning. Um, and I try to start arguments with myself to see if I can get a scene going. And what happened was, and just to set this up, we've got Lucy who yearns for domesticity. Uh, and it just occurred to me, the most iconic line from the show is "Lucy, I'm home." I, I can load that up. I can emphasize home in the story. I can write a speech that happens on the soundstage at 2 a.m. with Bill and Vivian, where she talks about it being like a story you tell, a fairy tale you tell a little girl, where a witch casts a spell that she'll be adored by the man she loves as long as she stays on this patch of ground. And she talks about how she did I Love Lucy to save her marriage. She thought the construction department, they'll build us this little apartment, and that's where we'll live. And I'm driving in my car thinking about all this, and the very same smile that Lucy gets on her face of the irony, just literally stopping her in her tracks in front of an audience, of Desi walking in the door and saying, "Lucy, I'm home." I got that smile on my face. I knew what the end of the movie was going to be. And once you have that, you can write toward it.
On that note, I'm out of time. I really hope at some point in the near future, I get to have a longer conversation with you.
I hope so too. Thanks a lot for this one.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have
My
a great
pleasure.
day.